Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the GC360 podcast recorded right here at the Garden City, New York Media Studio. I am your host, Erica Becker, and on this show, we have some of the most interesting people in the community on our show to talk about their business and their life. And today, I have with me a wonderful entrepreneur. We have Kate McKeever, and she is the founder of Lilac Accounting. So, Kate, thank you so much for coming on the show and being open to sharing your story with everyone.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Of course, I'm excited too. First of all, I love female entrepreneurs, so I'm excited that you're here. And my first question is always, what got you started? When did you start doing accounting, and what brought you to now moving from working in a firm to having your own LLC, Lilac Accounting?
Sure. So I went to school for accounting. I graduated with a master's in accounting about 10 years ago. And I followed the normal path out of school into a big firm, which was great for the experience, but it was tough hours, a lot of stress. I also passed the CPA exam during that time. And throughout my career in corporate accounting, friends or acquaintances would come to me who had started their own businesses or started working for themselves, and they would have tax and accounting questions. And I found it really rewarding to help them. So I started to think about how could I make this my career, helping other small business owners. So last fall, I started to lay the groundwork, do some research, and get certified in the bookkeeping software. And then this spring, I started officially taking on my own clients.
That's so great. So you went from the normal corporate long hour, and you said that you mentioned before during tax season you would have really brutal hours when you worked at the firm in the city, right?
Right. Yeah, it would be 80+ hour weeks. I've pulled all-nighters before.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy. So it's nice now to have better work-life balance.
Yeah, definitely. So you said you also got certified in bookkeeping. So what does a bookkeeper do, and what's the difference between like the accounting side and bookkeeping side? I know that accounting is kind of a broad term.
Right. Yeah, and I think it can be confusing for people who haven't worked in that industry to understand the nuances. Yeah. So accountant is kind of a broad term, and then within that you can have a bookkeeper, a tax accountant, various different types. And what bookkeepers do specifically is track all the income and expenses for the business and categorize it and create reports that the business owner can use. It's kind of the foundation for a lot of other accounting and finance questions that the business owner has to solve, because they can use those reports to provide to a tax preparer to figure out how much tax they're going to owe. They can use it to budget or forecast or make decisions for their business. So bookkeeping is kind of the starting point, the basic foundation for all the other accounting and finance issues that the business owners face.
Okay. So how is that? It sounds like it would definitely be beneficial, but why do you think it's specifically beneficial for small businesses that you are now working more with?
I think there's a few benefits. Some are immediate and some are more long-term. So the immediate benefit that the small business owners usually feel is that time back, because usually they're doing everything themselves. They're wearing many different hats. And especially if they don't come from a background of accounting or finance work, that is something that usually is a little overwhelming for them, takes them longer than it needs to. So they immediately get some time back when they hand that over to a bookkeeper to focus on the things that really matter in their business and that they're really talented at. And they also get the peace of mind that it's being handled by a professional, because accounting is a really technical field. If you haven't worked in this before, it can be very confusing. So they get the peace of mind that someone who knows what they're doing is handling it. And then in the long term, as you get more and more of that financial data month over month, you can make great decisions for your business when you see all the numbers in front of you. So you can see what expenses are maybe a little high or what income is working. I had a great example recently with a client. We got her bookkeeping caught up from the beginning of the year till now, because she hadn't been doing it before, which is understandable for a lot of busy small business owners. And I was able to separate her different categories of income and the expenses related to it. So she's not a photographer, but pretend she is for anonymity's sake.
Yeah.
And she had 3 main services. So say it was like wedding photography, product photography, portrait photography. I was able to run reports for her that showed how much profit she was earning from each of those services.
Oh, wow.
And we could really clearly see that one was earning her a lot of profit. Another one earned a little, but maybe wasn't worth her time. And then the third one was actually costing her money.
Oh.
So that made it really easy for her as a business owner to say, okay, I'm going to stop doing this and double down on what's working. And then we created a budget and a forecast through the end of the year for her based on that strategy. And she's projected to earn much more, be more successful in her business. So that's kind of the power of bookkeeping. When you have all that information in front of you, you can make better decisions for your business.
Wow, that's a lot of great information that you just shared. I think a lot of people don't think that deeply about it sometimes. You know, they think, oh, a bookkeeper is not necessary. Maybe it'd be nice to have one, but not. But it sounds like it's pretty necessary, especially for the example that you gave. You not only saved her money, but now she's projecting to make more, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
So have you seen with that particular client, since you started the strategy, how has it been doing so far, or did that just happen?
It just happened recently, but she's projected to, earn more now. And the bookkeeping also often pays for itself in that way. Like the decisions it can help you make will more than cover the cost of it. And it's really valuable information to have. Some people think it's sort of a necessary evil to get their taxes done. Like, oh, I guess I have to have a bookkeeper to get my numbers for the tax return. But there's so much more you can do with that information.
Definitely. And you do both, right? Mm-hmm. So that's pretty rare.
Yes, not all bookkeepers do taxes and not all tax accountants are bookkeepers, but because I'm a CPA and I've done tax work before, I can help clients with their tax return too. So that's something I encourage small business owners to talk to their bookkeeper or tax preparer about and be clear from the beginning, like, are they going to handle both? Which can be nice because then it's kind of a one-stop shop for all their tax and accounting needs. Mm-hmm. But there's benefit too in having those people be separate. Some people like the 2 different sets of eyes on their books. So you just want to know when you hire an accountant, what exactly are they going to do for the business?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's great that you can do both. I think it would be, as a client, it would be easier to have just someone who they trust to take care of everything. Mm-hmm. I'm loving this. I have some more questions for you, Kate, but we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
My father never stops moving, but after he had a brain aneurysm, he had a difficult time getting back to his normal routine. That's when I called Alliance Services. They paired him with Rosa. She developed a custom home care plan that helped him with his recovery.
Rosa helped me gain my independence back.
Alliance Services, helping older adults continue to live well and independent.
Hey everyone, welcome back to this episode of the GC360 podcast. I'm your host, Erica, and if you're just now joining us, I am joined here with Kate, who is a founder of a Lilac Accounting, and she now has her own business in an accounting firm, and she handles working with a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. So we've been talking a lot about how you help them, and it's been great, and it sounds like it's very beneficial for any kind of small business or entrepreneur or anything like that. But what do you think sets you apart from other bookkeepers or accountants?
I'm pretty approachable. I really encourage open line of communication with my clients, and I bill them a flat monthly fee. I don't bill by the hour because I want them to come to me with little questions like, hey, is this deductible? Do I need to be collecting sales tax? I mean, there's some more complex things that would require more consulting, but most of their questions I like to answer and be in the know and sort of be a trusted advisor for them. I also taught an accounting class at the university level for a few years. So I'm very familiar with explaining these terms and breaking it down sort of in plain English for people. And then another point that I really like to make to my clients is I'm never judging them for their financial situation. A lot of people who come to me, I'm their first accountant or bookkeeper, and maybe they've been doing it themselves or they haven't been tracking any of their money in their business. And sometimes they can feel a little ashamed or embarrassed of that, like they're supposed to know this stuff by now and they don't.
Definitely.
But I always tell people, you can't shock me. I've seen it all before. And what matters is getting it right for the future.
Yeah, I think that's great that you are so approachable. And like you said, people may be embarrassed. I mean, your money, whether it's personal or for your business, is a very touchy, it can be a touchy, vulnerable thing, right? So you definitely want to trust your bookkeeper and accountant. So that's wonderful. And it's wonderful you have that experience of teaching. Where did you teach at?
At my alma mater, Catholic University. It's down in DC. So I taught remotely during the pandemic, but now they're back to all in person.
Oh, very nice. So you took advantage of that remote. Very, very good. That's very great. And what was your experience like? How did you like doing that, teaching?
It was great. It was super rewarding. The kids were all really smart and really interested. So if you're an accounting major, you're pretty interested in the material.
Yeah.
So they enjoyed it.
Yeah. So have you always, like we kind of spoke before, accounting, if you're not familiar with it, trained in it, interested in it, it's a very intimidating, can be very confusing and overwhelming. So have you always been interested in numbers and accounting, like when you were going through, I know you went to school for it, to college, but before that, were you always interested in this, or what other kind of things did you think about doing?
No, I sort of was surprised myself that I ended up in this career. I initially went to school for languages. I was a German major.
Oh, wow.
Because I really love travel and language learning. But as I got closer to graduation, I started to think about the jobs I could get with that degree, and I wasn't sure that was what I wanted to do for a living. So I sort of took an accounting class on a whim because I figured maybe I'll be self-employed one day. This would be a good thing to know.
Yeah, definitely.
And I remember about halfway through that semester, a friend asking me what my favorite class was, and I surprised myself when I said accounting. And my first professor really was a great mentor and sort of took me under his wing and helped me change my degree and get all the credits and everything I needed to graduate with a master's in accounting and then sit for the CPA exam. But yeah, once I got started in it, I really loved it. It's sort of like a puzzle, figuring out the numbers for the business. So I like that aspect of it.
Oh, cool. It's great to love what you do. So that also, I think, probably sets you apart from maybe other accountants or bookkeepers, that you're passionate about it. That's cool that you surprised yourself with it too, and that you started doing something else. That's so great. And now, I know a lot of small business owners, and we have a lot of them on the show and connect with a lot of them in the community at Garden City, New York Media. So I know a lot of our listeners are going to want to know some tips from you as the expert. So what are some common mistakes that particularly small business or entrepreneurs might make in accounting, and how can they avoid doing them?
Sure. There's I'd say three main ones that I see a lot. The first is not knowing that you have to make quarterly estimated tax payments. A lot of people miss that in their first year working for themselves, because usually we're used to being an employee of a company and they file our withholding for us and give us a W-2 at the end of the year, and each paycheck they're taking a little money out for taxes for the IRS and the state. But when you're your own employer, you have to do that. So you have to calculate each quarter. They're due in April, June, September, and then at the end of the year, you have to pay in quarterly for that coming year's tax return. So a lot of small business owners don't know that the first year, and then they go to file their taxes and they have a huge bill due because they haven't been paying anything in throughout the year. And you can also accrue some interest and penalties when you're not paying it in on time.
Okay. I was going to say, is there a penalty?
Yeah. So it's important to get in contact with a tax preparer as soon as you start your business to make sure that you're not missing those payments.
Yeah. That's definitely good advice, especially for anyone starting out new, which I know there's a lot of them out there. And so they can use an accountant, a tax professional to get that started for them.
Yeah,
to
you
help
want
them do
someone
that.
who specifically can calculate the taxes, but if you just have a bookkeeper, usually they can direct you to someone. And then another common mistake is intermingling their personal and business finances. You want to make sure from the start that you have a separate business bank account, and that you're keeping all of that separate from your personal expenses. One, it's just a mess to untangle at the end of the year if they're mixed. But the second is it can actually cost you money if you're doing that, because bookkeepers, it takes them more time to sort through personal and business mixed expenses. So they'll usually have to charge you more for that. So that's a good tip, is just keep that separate.
Keep it separate just from the get-go. Cool. And you said you had 3 major ones. What was the third?
The third one would be having like a budget or forecast for your business, just like you probably do in your personal life. A lot of small business owners are so busy in the day-to-day of running their business that they're not really thinking about how much they're spending on different things, how much income specifically came in that month, and where they're trending for the year. And that's sort of like trying to drive across the country without a map or GPS. Like, you might get where you want to go eventually, but you could get there a lot more efficiently with a plan.
Yeah.
So when you have the bookkeeping done for past months and you can kind of see the numbers in front of you, then you can plan what you want that profit to be for the future.
That's great advice, definitely. And you know what's interesting too to me is that you started your own business last fall, so it hasn't even quite been a year yet, right? And so do you think that all of your background in this benefited you and helped you in starting your own business too? Because you probably already knew all these 3 things when you started, right?
Yeah, it's definitely an advantage. And, things like how to set up an LLC, how to get a tax ID number. I've done that hundreds of times for other businesses. So it was easier to do for myself. And then it's also nice to see kind of inside so many different businesses and a lot of the things that make them successful or not, and kind of apply that to my own.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great background. So that being said, I think many people say that one of the most challenging things is that part, but for you, probably was not as challenging. So what do you think, what was the most challenging thing so far for you in branching off of the corporate and doing your own thing?
Probably setting up my website. I don't really have experience with like the web design or the setup, so that part was a little challenging. And that and the social media is maybe some stuff that I'd like to outsource in the future.
Yeah,
I think that comes naturally to some other people, and they struggle with the accounting, and I'm sort of the other way around.
Well, we all have our strengths, right? We all need each other.
Exactly.
And so yeah, that's so interesting. And if you were talking to anyone who was about to start their own business, what is some advice that you would give them, do you think?
I would encourage them to talk to a bookkeeper or accountant early, even if it's not myself. Just, I think getting that stuff set up correctly from the beginning can save you so much time and money in the long run. And then my other piece of advice would be just go for it. I've been doing this for a few months now and really enjoyed it, and it's so fulfilling and rewarding to work for yourself. It's worth all the hard work.
It is. I was going to ask you what your favorite thing about now, like from moving from corporate to working for yourself, like what your favorite thing about?
I think my favorite thing is being able to choose who I work with. Like all my clients, I love their businesses, their personalities, they're great to work with. And it feels good even if I'm, putting in some extra hours and doing it because I like this client, and it's rewarding to help their businesses.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you love what you do, and now you get to just throw yourself in there even more. And like you said, you pick who you work with, and that's to me one of the most important things. You can love what you do, but if you're not working with people that you enjoy, it's kind of a little bit, it's not as fulfilling, it's not as enjoyable. So that's very important. It's great that you get to do that. And so you mostly work from home then?
Yes, currently. I'd love to maybe have a little office around here in the future, but currently from home. Yeah.
Cool. So when you do, is it like with your clients, you mostly just speak to them virtually, or do you meet up with them?
Right now, it's mostly virtual. I can meet in person if they're local, but the nice thing about all the bookkeeping software is it's very easy to work remotely with people.
Yeah, I would think so. Awesome. And I mean, I think I love that you love what you do. That makes me happy to see people enjoying what they do. And I guess my final question for you would be, what do you think is the most important thing about what you do for people?
I really love seeing small businesses thrive, and I love people being able to pursue their passion and go out on their own and work for themselves. So I love that what I do supports other people following their dreams and helps build up the small businesses in the community. When you have the finances and taxes right, you can stay in business longer, you can support your family. It really just helps those individuals and the community as a whole, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Oh, and another question I had, do you work, whenever you're choosing a client or working with people, do they have to be local, or do you have clients that are across the country or anything like that?
I do, yeah. The nice thing about being a CPA, you're not limited to working only with people in your state. So I have some clients in the DC area, in the Midwest. I can help any US-based business.
Okay, great. That's very good to know for our audience too, because I'm sure there are people listening who are going to need your help for sure. Kate, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing. I learned a lot from talking with you, so I'm sure other people did too. So I really appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah,
and
for having me.
of course, and if people want to get in touch with you to work with you, or maybe do a startup meeting or anything, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
My website is lilacaccountants.com. Also on Instagram, I'm pretty active there. So that's a great way to get in touch with me. That's lilac_accounting. And then there's a link to the site in my bio there. And the initial discovery call is free. If you want to get a quote and figure out if we're the right fit for each other, you can do that through my website.
Awesome. And I love also the name Lilac Accounting. That's so nice. That's really unique. What made you think of that?
I wanted something kind of feminine, approachable, fun, and it's my favorite color, so I put them together. I thought the words sounded nice together. A lot of accountants just use their name as their business name, but I wanted something a little different.
I like it. It's memorable. Mm-hmm. So again, thank you again, Kate, and everyone, you know how to get a hold of her. She's on social media. She's got her number, her website, so don't hesitate to reach out for that free consultation. And thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the GC360 podcast. This episode was sponsored by Alliance Services, and I'm your host, Erica Becker. We will see you next time.